G-Man Boxing. Do you know what I mean? Every single live he donates. I see him on other lives donating. He's got the bag on it.
Alright, people. Midweek report time. So, a lot of stuff's come out over the last few days, and a lot of stuff that we need to talk about over the last few days. I think I'm going to kind of pick up from where Saturday night left off, because the Daniel Dubois fight is what we're going to start with. And obviously, it was a bizarre fight. There's a lot of people who were saying fixed fight, and to be honest with you, from the outside looking in, when you go back and look at it, it was definitely questionable. There was definitely a lot of question marks about it. You know, fixed fights, I mean, of course they happen in boxing. I mean, they've been happening. Look at boxing. The Mafia, you know, as far back as even the 1930s, Primo Carnera, perfect example. Now, Rodney Berman, who was the promoter of Kevin Lorena, has stated that he will be lodging a complaint with the WBA and the British Boxing Board of Control with regards referee Howard Foster in his fight with Daniel Dubois, stating that it was biased, and also that they failed to acknowledge the WBA's 3 knockdown rule, which is basically in effect for WBA title fights. But you see, the 3 knockdown rule is an interesting one. A lot of commissions, you know, British Boxing Board of Control in Nevada, they'll waive that on most occasions. Most of them do waive that, to be fair, but nevertheless, I mean, the whole fight itself was just bizarre. Me and Jamie spoke about this last night, and you know, with regards lodging a complaint against Howard Foster, I don't know Howard Foster personally. Alright, he could be a lovely, complete gentleman, he could be a great person, etc., etc. But in the arena of boxing, as a referee, him and Ian John Lewis more a judge. To be fair, I never really thought Ian John Lewis was that bad a referee. But Howard Foster as a referee is one of the worst, because Howard Foster, you can see it in his face. The minute a fighter gets hurt, he just goes into, it's almost like he's going into survival mode himself with the fighter, because he panics. I mean, if you look at Howard Foster's resume and his career, he has some absolutely bizarre stoppages. I think he stopped Ryder versus Blackwell, and that was a really premature stoppage. He stopped, obviously, famously, Froch Groves, the first fight, where George Groves was punching back with Carl Froch, and he was stunned, but it wasn't anything major, and he wasn't taking a beating in that fight, which was a really controversial stoppage. He's had a string of them. He's had an absolute string of very controversial stoppages, and to be fair, like, I don't necessarily look at the Lorena fight and say it was a... It's a weird one, because if that knockdown or the combination Dubois had put on Lorena happened, we'll say, a minute and 30 seconds into the round, I probably wouldn't have had too much of an issue with it. But the fact that the bell went and then he waves it off, at the end of the day, a minute's rest is a minute's rest. A lot can happen. You can get your legs back, a bit of cold water on top of the head, give the legs a bit of a pat and see how it goes. I think with Howard Foster, he just panics. He doesn't know what to do in that situation. And the fact of the matter is, he's an A-star referee. If you're an A-star referee and you're struggling to maintain order in the ring, you're not fully clear on the rules, and you're panicking the minute a fighter gets buzzed, yeah, that's not really a good look. In terms of this fight, like, it's a strange one. Do I think anything will happen in the investigation? I mean, they might get... One thing I've learned, right, through watching boxing, especially like with the British Boxing Board of Control, nothing will ever happen unless it's absolutely unavoidable. With Ian John Lewis, and I believe that was with regard to the scoring of Taylor Cattrall, that was one of the very rare occasions we've seen action taken against the judge or referee. I mean, you look at some of the scorecards Terry O'Connor has given, and the fact of the matter is, nothing has ever been done about it. Not only has nothing ever been done about it, there's never been an inquiry. They've never asked him to comment. They've never said, could you explain the scorecard, anything like that. Is it Rob Smith of the British Boxing Board of Control, who only recently has decided, yeah, I'm going to do my job. Before that, he never did anything. He used to look at the fans. He has so much contempt for fans, does Rob Smith. He just looks at the fans and thinks, you know nothing, we're this, we're that. And it's like, mate. I think we have to ask the question about, obviously we know boxing is a very corrupt sport. It's always been that way. But when you do see these situations, these instances where it's the A fighter who seems to get, the favourable treatment per se, obviously the bell rang 10 seconds early for Dubois. He was down 3 times in the round. And the same thing doesn't happen for Kevin Arena. Some people could go on and say, oh, but it's subjective. It's just coincidence. At the end of the day, like, I would understand it if it happened on both ends. If it was a case of, a bad scorecard going in the B-side fighter who didn't win the fight but was brought in as an opponent, put up a bit of resistance and somehow a judge gave it to him. That never happens. It's always the A-side who get the nod. So that's an interesting one. It's a very, very, very interesting one. And yeah, it's one that I think is going to be talked about a lot. Now, here's a really interesting one, okay? So Lawrence Okolie. Now, we know Lawrence Okolie, the issues with Eddie Hearn that's been going on. He has had a WBO mandatory ordered upon him. It's New Zealand contender David Light. Now, you can see the WBO's form where they ordered this mandatory, and it did state that Lawrence Okolie is still a matchroom fighter. So Eddie Hearn is still promoting him. Now, obviously, he's trying to get out of that. He's handled this absolutely disgracefully, Lawrence Okolie. Childish almost. He's handled it like, a spoiled little brat. That's the best way I can describe it. Because at the end of the day, you've one fight left on your deal. You could have just fought and got it over and done with and then gone off. You could have done it without having any of this animosity. And I've always been someone, I've said it once, I'll say it again, very pro-fighter in these situations. I always feel that if the fighter feels there's a better opportunity elsewhere, there's more money, there's a chance to make bigger fights, you should go. Or if you're not being treated fairly by said promoter, of course, you're not obliged to stay there at the end of the day, if he's not treating you fairly, if they feel the promoter's not doing his job. Eddie Hearn has done his job and then some. Eddie Hearn has been brilliant to Lawrence Okolie. I mean, he has literally, like Lawrence Okolie in 2018, a lot of people really didn't like him because he stunk the joint out. I think Sky didn't really help him at the start because they kind of made him out to be a kind of character that he wasn't, kind of AJ 2.0. And I think that rubbed people up the wrong way because a lot of people really didn't like Lawrence Okolie as a character, early on, because I think that had a lot to do with how Sky were sort of trying to bring him along in terms of a kind of personality wise. But Eddie Hearn stuck with him through all that. He's kept him on these big shows, got him a world title fight, got him a Rolex for winning the world title fight. And to come out and say what Lawrence Okolie has said about him, to me, it comes across as very distasteful. It comes across as someone who is just trying to throw their toys out of the pram almost. Because maybe Eddie Hearn has said, look, and at the end of the day, look at the O2 in his last fight. Did not look anywhere near full. And I'm sure they took a loss on that. I'm sure he's probably looking at that and thinking, I cannot be taking losses on shows, paying you this money. So, if you want to go elsewhere, you've one more fight, get it over and done with, decide what you want to do. That's reasonable. Not the way Okolie's done it. So because this little issue is happening, obviously contractual issue, it's gone to an immediate purse bid. So that's going to be, I believe that's next Friday. I think Friday the 14th of December. So we wait and see what happens there with this whole Lawrence Okolie situation. But I have to say, very bad form from Okolie in how he's handled it. He's not handled this right at all. Especially if it's one fight left. Just look, again, I'm not privy to what's going on behind the scenes. But seriously, you've one fight left. Surely you could have just gone out on an AJ card. Or you could have just done a little Saturday fight night or something like that. Get the win, get it over and done with. Thanks for everything, Eddie. See you later. I'm going over to, we assume, boxer. And instead we're in this kind of mess here. And it is a mess. It is an absolute, it's a mess. It really is an absolute mess. What's also a mess is Undisputed at heavyweight. It just seems with that, we just end up going 2 steps back every single time. So obviously Tyson Fury has said that he is potentially going to, looks like he is going to have surgery on his right elbow, which will mean that he'll need roughly 6 to 8 weeks to recover. Now, the proposed date for Alexander Usyk versus Tyson Fury, more than likely in Saudi Arabia, was end of February, start of March. That would essentially rule that day out. Essentially, it would rule it out. Now, is this an injury that happened in the ring with Chisora? Well, judging by the way Fury was speaking about it, no. So that to me makes it all the more kind of irritating, because at the end of the day, you went into a pointless fight with an injury that you knew you would need to get surgery on at some point, and you knew you would need 6 to 8 weeks to recover from. So why the hell did you go into this fight then, if you didn't have to? If you didn't have to, why have you done this? Because it essentially means now that the proposed date, which was the start of the year, end of February, start of March, ain't going to happen now. It ain't going to happen. So this is going to get dragged out, which ultimately means Usyk is probably going to have to make a mandatory title defense of his IBF title against Filip Hrgović. Now, I would be picking Usyk to win that fight, but at the end of the day, this is still heavyweight boxing. Upsets happen when you least expect them. Filip Hrgović, look, I think that's a fairly straightforward fight for Usyk, but he's a big guy with punching power. You just don't know what might happen. At the end of the day, Usyk is older than Fury. He's going on 36 now, come January 17th is his birthday. So he's not getting any younger. So the longer this is left, to simmer, the older Alexander Usyk is going to get. Fury, although he's lived I would say a hard enough life over the last few years, with the alcohol and stuff, he is still younger than Alexander Usyk. He is, neither guy has really been in wars per se. I mean, you could say the Fury Wilder third fight was a bit tough, but it was only really a round that was tough for Fury. So you just want to see both these guys, while both of them have it in the tank, go at it and make a go of it. I hope we get Undisputed next year. Jamie said last night that he feels Fury will get a big fight next year, a big fight, but it's just a case of who is it. Joyce in the UK is a big fight. It is. It's a big fight. And it's a fight that I would have less confidence in seeing an upset. I would be picking Fury against Joyce and Usyk, but I see Usyk having more potential to win, than Joe Joyce. Joe Joyce has the ability, let's say the ability. Joe Joyce has the power. He is a juggernaut. That's the best way we use it. The nickname is Juggernaut. But I see Fury still having a little bit too much for him. A bit too much speed, a bit too much boxing, ring IQ, movement, etc. But it would be interesting to see. You see, with Dylan White, with the benefit of hindsight, you could look back and say, there was nothing he could have done. With Joyce, I think there's things he can do to offset Fury. So it would be an interesting fight, Joe Joyce versus Tyson Fury. It'd be quite interesting. Obviously, we are hearing that the Canelo Ryder fight is, reportedly likely next May in the UK, US or Mexico. Eddie Hearn has stated that Bivol potentially could fight Buatsi or Smith before a rematch with Canelo, potentially down at super middleweight. Now, interesting he's mentioning Callum Smith, because he's saying potentially that could happen with Dimitri Bivol. Well, I seen today that, I forget who it was, but who was it who posted? I can't remember who posted it, but it was saying that after Beterbiev gets through, assuming he gets through Anthony Yarde, because I'm not going to write Anthony Yarde off completely, likelihood is the mandatory against Callum Smith will be ordered. Now, I don't know if they can arrange Undisputed. Would it take preference? I would imagine it would. But saying that if Bivol is contractually obliged to fight Canelo, I don't really know how you get around that, to be honest with you. I really don't. It's a bit of a head scratcher, isn't it? Because you want to see Undisputed so bad, but you could see a mandatory on one end getting in the way and a rematch clause on the other end getting in the way, and it's just like probably one of, if not the best, in my opinion, not the best fight in boxing is still Spence Crawford, but easily, close second and third. It could be interchangeable, whichever order you like. It would be AJ Wilder or it would be Beterbiev Bivol. They're the fights we really want to see in 2023. In terms of Canelo Ryder, I mean, they're not going to sell it as a big dangerous fight for Canelo. He even said he needs a tune-up. John Ryder, if ever a fighter has earned a big payday, who's had enough bad luck in his career, it's him. And I genuinely think he will give it a go. He's going to be completely outmatched against Canelo, but he will give it a go. He's an improved fighter. I mean, this is a guy, I said it earlier, got stopped by Nick Blackwell. And the Nick Blackwell fight was an interesting one. If you've never seen it, you'd watch that fight and you'd just think, how did he lose it? because he was lighting Nick Blackwell up in that fight. I think that might have even been. Was that on the undercard of not AJ? Well, AJ was on it as well, but was that on the undercard of Kell Brook versus Frankie Gavin? I think I remember that. I think that might have been on that card actually. In terms of Canelo, I think that, as I said, he's going to win. He's going to beat John Ryder. He'll probably fight. The September date is the interesting one. That's the interesting one. But I just hope John Ryder gives it a go. I suspect he will. Because I look at the way Callum Smith was, and it was a real case. I'm going to tuck up and get 12 rounds, pay me, and it's all good in the hood. So hopefully it's not like that. Hopefully he really goes and tries to win. In terms of other fights, this right here, Demetrius Andre versus Damon Nicholson. Now Nicholson, I think, fought Berlanga. I think he went the distance with Berlanga at super middleweight. I wonder how much Demetrius Andre is getting paid for that fight. I would imagine not very much, because if you think about it like this, right, he could have fought Zach Parker, right, and potentially got the Canelo fight off the back of that, and instead he done I was going to say he done a Kell Brook, but at least Kell Brook got a big fight and a big payday when he fought Triple G, when he could have went the Vargas route. I really don't understand why he didn't take that Zach Parker. Well, I understand that he was getting big paydays on his own, and this was not going to be a big payday. But look, Zach Parker, it didn't take much for John Ryder. Obviously he hurt his hand, but Zach Parker, I don't think would have given Demetrius Andre much bother. And here he is. He's fighting Nicholson here. Realistically, for Demetrius Andre at this stage, I would say if I was him, I'd be dreaming about the Canelo fight, because that's all it's ever going to be, is a dream. I think you rightly F that up now, the only chance to get in that fight. In terms of, if you want a semi-big fight, you'd probably have to go to the UK for this. But you could get the Billy Joe Saunders fight over. You could get that on. He is coming back now next year. And I don't think he's going to be anywhere close to the fighter he was. So in the UK, would it really be a big fight in the UK? Saunders against Eubank is a big fight, pay-per-view. But I guess anyone else, really, when you think about it, like, Billy Joe is not a household name in the UK. He's not. And he's been out of the ring for 2 years. Would he really fight someone like Demetrius Andre? Unless he was getting mega money. Now, this is going to be on the undercard of Tank Davis versus Hector Luis Garcia. Also on the undercard, Jaron Ennis, Boots Ennis versus Karen. I'm going to try and do it because it doesn't look as hard. I'm going to sound it out. Chukadalskin. Right? I'm trying that one there. That's for the interim IBF welterweight title. So, you would imagine he's either going to get mandated to fight Errol Spence, first mandatory in 4.5 years, or Spence and Crawford, they get it on, and one of them or both move up, and then Boots is just elevated to full champion. One or the other. Look, I love watching Boots Ennis. I'd love to see him fight someone like Batayev or Stanionis. I know Stanionis got ordered to fight Ortiz, but Stanionis fights on PBC, I thought. In terms of other fights here's actually an interesting one. Anthony Joshua is now out in the US again, and he's doing what he did last year. So he's in different gyms, training with different trainers. Been training with Virgil Hunter, who was one of the coaches that he visited last year. Now, Virgil Hunter is an interesting one. Some people say he gets a bit overrated because, he had Andre Ward, but who else has he had? And it's a bit unfair. Like, he's done good work with Amir Khan. I think that when Amir Khan was with Virgil Hunter, that was the best he looked. And I think that he, in many ways, you could say, don't want to say it like this, but extended Amir Khan's career if you think about it. Because I think under Freddie Roach, Amir Khan was destined to get ironed out again pretty quickly. Under Goosen, that was a bizarre combo, Amir Khan and Goosen. Because Goosen is just all about offense, and that's not Amir Khan's problem, it's defense. I think Virgil Hunter did the best with Amir Khan. At the end of the day, Virgil Hunter, Emmanuel Stewart, Eddie Futch, Angie Dundee, etc., the greatest trainers in history, he could never have beaten Canelo with any of them in the corner. So I don't look at that fight and say, well, he got ironed out, but he was never, ever, ever going to beat Canelo. Like, there was not a chance in hell he was ever going to beat. It didn't matter who was in the corner, he was never going to beat him. Never going to happen. So, Virgil Hunter is an interesting one. Virgil Hunter is very good at getting the mindset in a fighter. You know, he's very good at getting into the fighter's head. Look at Andre Ward. When Andre Ward had the crisis in the second round of the Kovalev fight, he was able to just calm Andre Ward down, give him a pep talk, and Ward was able to adjust. So I don't think Hunter's as bad a coach as people say. Now, in terms of heavyweights, he's obviously trained Tony Yoka. At the end of the day, like, Yoka hasn't looked amazing. It has to be. He looked alright, but against Okolie, I mean, Jesus, that really, he just fell apart against Martin Okolie, really. But, you know, I liked some of the things that he's taught into Tony Yoka. I just think with Yoka, maybe it's just a different style. It's just not blending. Could be that. But it's going to be interesting to see who else AJ works with over there. As he said, he's doing all this kind of on a temp basis. You know, Roy Jones was one of the guys who's going over to see. He probably trained with Ronnie Shields and people like that. Maybe even Freddie Roach, you wouldn't know. So we'll see what he does there. In terms of Tank Davis, he's now confirmed that he is finally split with Mayweather Promotion. So he's no longer part of the money team. However, he remains with Al Heyman PBC. He says, much love to Mayweather Promotions, Leonard Ellerby, Floyd, all the guys. I definitely appreciate them. I'm just doing my own thing right now. So he's essentially done nothing. Because, yeah, he's not with Mayweather Promotions, but he's with Al Heyman. So he's still on PBC. So nothing changes regards that. He's still a PBC fighter. He's on Fox or Showtime. It's essentially nothing's changed. You know, Al Heyman is not officially a promoter, but, you know, you had Lou DiBella at one point was kind of one of Al Heyman's kind of guys who was, he's the promoter, but it's really Al Heyman, you know. And I think it's the same with Mayweather. Who else? Didn't Joe Goosen, or was it Dan Goosen? I always get those Goosens mixed up. One was a promoter, one was a trainer, but they all had shows on PBC. They used to promote the Charlos. Well, I said Joe Goosen or Dan. I think it's Dan Goosen. He's dead now, R.I.P. Ward was promoted by him as well. He had the Charlos on. I think he did Charlo. Jamel versus Vanis Martirosyan. Really, really close fight that was, actually. Charlo could have taken an L in that fight. Really could have. In terms of the Fury Chisora fight, Frank Warren said, everyone thought Fury was a convincing winner. I strongly believe it would have been a similar outcome had it been Joshua in there. Well, we'll see. He says Derek did better than Dylan White did in April and clearly takes a better shot than Deontay Wilder. Well, I mean, Chisora lasted longer. They both did pretty poor against Fury, to be honest with you. So, like, you could give Chisora brownie points for lasting longer and not getting knocked out with one shot. Yeah. Ryan Garcia versus Mercito Gastia is reportedly a done deal. End of January 21st or the 28th. And hopefully we will have Garcia versus Tank in April. Really looking forward to that. Demetrius Andre on Canelo Alvarez. He ain't trying to get in there with real dogs or someone that knows how to really fight. Yeah, so Bivol doesn't know how to really fight. Triple G doesn't know how to really fight. You know, Billy Joe doesn't know how to really fight, etc. Mate, elastic don't stretch that far. This was a sad one when I seen this. Mills Lane. Boxing referee Mills Lane. Let's get on. That referee, he passed away at the age of 85. Mills Lane. In the 90s, he was the kind of guy who was in all the big fights. He did the Tyson Holyfield second fight. The famous ear bite where Tyson said, you know, I didn't do it in Mills Lane, just BS, but he used the actual words. Yeah, Mills Lane, I liked Mills Lane. Let's get it on. Let's get it on. R.I.P. to Mills Lane. Caleb Plant has indicated that he will fight Dave Benavidez. It's going to take place in early March 2023. So David Benavidez versus Caleb Plant. Really looking forward to that fight. I think that Dave Benavidez should really smoke Caleb Plant, but you never know. Dave Benavidez is a weird one. He's had so many issues, just discipline issues, missing weight. You know, he was caught having a bit of the Hoover, so you know that's obviously not good. Out of camp as well, so it obviously kind of shows what he'd be getting into outside of camp. So not ideal. But when it's all on for the Benavidez, he is really something else. And the winner of that is obviously going to be mandated to fight Canelo Alvarez. Obviously, this coming week, we obviously have Terence Crawford versus David Avanesian. I think they're showing that on Fight TV here in the UK. And obviously, Conlon He's fighting up in Belfast. That's on Fight TV as well. I wish some of the major promoters like BT or major networks like Sky and BT would pick up them fights, because the Conlan card is actually quite a good card. It's actually quite a good card to make it. The main event is crap, but the actual undercard is quite decent. You got McKenna, you got Padraig McCroy, I think you've got other Sean McComb, amongst others. I think you've got a few domestic clashes on that card as well. It looks actually a decent card. I'll be kind of dipping in and out between that and I'll probably be watching that more than the zone card. I'll probably watch Warrington, definitely. I'm looking forward to seeing Warrington versus Luis Alberto. Really looking forward to that one. I think that's going to be great. It's going to be a great fight. So we've got some good cards this weekend. Obviously Crawford versus Avanesian. I mean, I see that fight as just being a case of when, not if, Crawford gets rid of him. Like, I can't see how he wins. He's going to get absolutely battered against Terence Crawford. But you never know. Crawford's been out of the ring a year. And I think, like, if Crawford looks bad, I would say, like, Crawford kind of has to look, he's obviously going to look good against Avanesian. But if he looks bad, I mean, would he lose some negotiating power with Errol Spence? I mean, Errol Spence is the ace side. There's no ifs or buts. He is the ace side going into this fight. He has more of the titles. He is the guy who's been headlining pay-per-views. You know, Crawford's pay-per-views have absolutely tanked over the years. I mean, I think off that maybe he's only done 2. He done he done Porter Crawford was pay-per-view, and Postal versus Crawford was pay-per-view, and that really tanked. That did less than 75,000 if memory serves me correct. You look back now and you just think, why was that ever? That was HBO pay-per-view. You look back now and you think, how did that ever go on pay-per-view? But it did. Amazing. Crazy things in the world of boxing. I think that's pretty much it. So I will leave it there, people. Hope you enjoyed the video. Smash the like button. Midweek report back on a Wednesday, as it should be. I like doing these on a Wednesday. I do. Hopefully we will get some stuff out before the end of the week. I've got a few things planned. If not, we will reconvene on Saturday. But I've got a few thumbnails in the ready. So probably tomorrow, if I'm not out tomorrow night, then I will go and do some more recording and get some stuff out for you guys. For now, I will leave you with that. I hope you enjoyed the video, people. Smash the like button if you could. If you haven't already, please hit subscribe. Help your boy out. We're getting closer, lads. We are getting so close. We are nearly 270 subs away from 10k. I mean, I'm just looking at that. You know what is weird, right? Me and Jane were talking about this. When me and him both hit 5k, I was kind of like, the pressure is off almost. Not off, but it was like, that's a hurdle, it's done. And when you get close to the next hurdle, you're just like, just do it. Just please. And you're just like, get to 10k. And that's what I want. I just want to get to see that 10k. Because then I think the next hurdle is really, for me, it will be 20. So that's what I want to do after that, which is obviously going to happen sooner or later. But I just want to get to 10k. So anyone, like it, share it, all that good stuff, etc. For now, lads and lassies, I'll leave you with that. Hope you enjoyed it. Peace.